Welcome to Pods with Posh and Paul, a podcast designed to inspire and challenge listeners through story, experience and insight. To face adversity, learn from suffering and discover how to embrace life with a heart filled with love and gratitude. We are so thrilled to have you journey with us and can't wait to share your stories. Join Sue O'Callaghan and Joanne Webb as we disrupt the theory that everyone has perfect lives.
Hi, welcome to this episode of TeenPODS, and we're back with Aunty Bubbly. Hi, Beverly, how are you?
I am bubbly, thank you very much. I'm very well.
Great. So today we're going to talk about the 5 love languages. For those listeners that have never heard of the concept, there is a delightful chap, Dr. Gary Chapman, who has written a book called The 5 Love Languages, and it explains 5 different ways in which we communicate love to others and the ways in which other people communicate to us. So Beverly, should we just go straight in and you explain what those 5 ways are?
Of course, thank you. Before I do, I just wanted to give a little anecdote to everybody, right? I know you're teens, those basically who are listening to this, but sometimes your parents may be listening as well. This is a true story. I have friends that were married for 40 years and they told me about this book. And I said, what's so special? And they said, well, for 40 years we had a great marriage and we have a great marriage still. We've got 4 kids and grandkids, innumerable grandkids, but there was always some sort of a irritation about the way we communicated with each other. And she said to me, I got tired of him telling me all the time how wonderful I was, how much he loved me. And I kept thinking, why don't you do something to show me, help me in the house with the kids and the chores, right? And so that was a bit of an irritation for her. He, on the other hand, said to me, well, I love the little things that she did for me, these lovely surprising things that I hadn't expected. But he said, she never told me that she loved me. I never really knew that she did. And he said, when we learned this language, I realized that my love language was words of affirmation. And so that's why I was telling her all the time how wonderful she was, because I wanted her to reciprocate. And I didn't know that. It was unconscious. And she said, well, that wasn't my language. I just wanted him to do little acts of service for me because that's what I did back for him. That was important to me. Yeah. So when they realized that and they could change their language to help accommodate the other, then wow, their marriage kind of came more to life and their relationship came more to life again after 40 years. So
that's such a lovely story because we talk to people in different ways, don't we? And when we talk about love languages, it's a way that we express our love to another person. And you talked about acts of service. What are the other 4 different ways that we express our love to each other?
Yes, well, there's this really, what Dr. Chapman talks about in his book are 5 separate ways that we all tend to either give or receive love. And some we might be able to tick 2 of them or even 3 of them. It's rare that we'd have the whole 5 as our language. Okay, but this is our language, and we have to remember other people that we're relating to have their own languages as well. So what are they, right? The first one is, it doesn't have to be in any particular order, but it's just, this is the way he explains. The first one is words of affirmation. And that's saying something nice, basically, about other people, encouraging them, letting them know that they're important to you. That kind of thing, right? Words of affirmation. The second one is physical touch. And, the joke about, is somebody a touchy-feely person? We know that expression. So physical touch is an important thing for some people. The third one, quality time. Now, this is basically just having the time to spend with somebody else. In this mad world that we're in, sometimes it's difficult to actually allocate time, between parents and children, or between even with your best girlfriend. You could both be sitting there on your phones and not really talking to each other, right? And just, scrolling through your WhatsApp or whatever. That's not really quality time, right? Quality time is what explains it, quality time. The fourth one is receiving gifts. Some people just love to receive a gift from somebody else. Or they love to give gifts to somebody else. That's their way of expressing that. And then the fifth one, is no particular order, just happens to be, is acts of service. Things that you do for somebody else that shows them that they're important to you. So they're the 5.
Can I read a lovely quote out which I've found? It says, We assume others show love the same way we do. And if they don't, we worry it's not there. Everyone has their own love language. That's one of the most important lessons I've ever learned. And it's so true, isn't it? Because we can have that, like, you know, you just talked about your friends who have been married for 40 years. Underline, they knew they each loved each other, but to actually have a more understanding of yourself and other people, it just makes that love bigger and stronger, doesn't it? Like, I know for a fact my mum and dad loved me as I grew up. I have no doubt about that. And it's a feeling I had. However, they didn't speak my love language. They didn't. I'm physical touch and words of affirmation. Both things I didn't really get after I was after I started school. We weren't really a huggy family, and they never really told me outright that they loved me. So I just had to assume they did. And so I think now, as a parent, I cover all 5 love languages of my children and do all of them. But it is just so important to understand who you are and what's really important to you. And there's a beautiful quiz online that you can take, isn't there? From Dr. Gary Chapman. We can all pop on, and there's a teenage one as well, which is a great tool to use.
It's fabulous. In fact, you know, I've only just recently discovered, as you probably have too, as we research this, that there is a book being written for parents called The 5 Love Languages of Teenagers. So kids, if you think your parents don't really understand you, get your mum or dad to buy the book, right? That will help them to understand maybe what your love language is. I've said the different characteristics, but basically it's what fills up your love tank.
Yes.
What makes you feel loved? What makes you feel loved? Do you know? Is it when, you know, a girlfriend sticks up for you or a boyfriend sticks up for you and says nice things about you in front of their friends, and that makes you feel special? Then maybe words of affirmation are one of your love languages, right? Do you long to have somebody just, you know, even just stroke your arm or give you a great big hug, right? That is physical touch. I recently had a relationship, which I have no more, because one of the problems was he was not a touchy-feely person, and I was, right?
Did you keep grabbing him?
And so physical touch, you will know if you're a person like that really longs to have people, or who can't, you know. My mother, I was just so blessed, opposite to you, Joe. My mother used to hug us all the time, right? And she called them huggle-buggles. And even in our family now, you know, the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren know what a huggle-buggle is, right? It's just like a family tradition that she established, right? And that's another thing. It's important. Little family traditions can help.
And I'm so pleased you've mentioned a parent there, because for listeners that are here thinking, gosh, it all makes sense, but how do I find out what my love languages are? Often the first way we discover is we are brought up in a family environment, and what we know is what we take for granted. We don't know any different. When we start to go to other people's families, we make analysis and we compare, and we start to say, gosh, that father always spends time with his children. I wish my dad did that for me. That mother's always hugging her children. I wish my mother did that for me. Or that mother's always baking a cake and putting it on the table. My mother doesn't do that for me. So when we start to go to other people's houses is when we start to actually compare, and we see what our parents do and what our parents don't do. And then we start to notice that's actually what I need and what I haven't been getting at home, or I really appreciate, that's what I've been getting at home, and that feeds my soul. So for listeners thinking, which of the 5 love languages is mine? It might be all, like Joe. It might be you absolutely love having somebody saying to you, I love you so much. Do you realize what you mean to me? You look beautiful today. It might just be how you look. Do you realize the way you dress is beautiful? I love your smell. I love the way you do your hair. Or it might be you just need to spend quality time with other people. So as you're listening to this talk, start to think about not only what do you need, but how do other people express it to you? Because it might be it's not what you actually need. You need something else from them.
Yes. So even the way other people relate to you, you can then work out, is that really feeding me? Do I really feel that? Do I resonate with that or not? And if I don't resonate with it, maybe that's not my love language, but big clue, maybe it's theirs.
Yeah.
So, you know, to be observant, just to become a bit more observant of your communication and just acts of friendship and the things that happen between you and a girlfriend or you and a boyfriend, right? Because we all have our own love languages.
Yeah, that's a really good thing. You to pick up on their love language, to look out for it, because everything we try to do is to try to learn more about ourselves and to more about others, isn't it? And the more we can actually learn, the more equipped we are to deal with life. So if you can understand your own love language and then the theory behind the love languages, it makes it easier to communicate with other people, doesn't it? And to cause less conflict. Like, I'm just thinking about, for instance, we deal with a lot of teenagers. Sometimes one will write to another going, do you fancy coming out tonight, or we're going to be in a group, but actually they don't want to be in a group. They might just want some one-on-one attention with you, and therefore their love language might be real pure quality time. But sometimes you might think, oh God, they're just so needy, they want me all the time. But actually, maybe if you just spent some quality time with them, then they'd be happy to come out in the group. Do you know what I mean? It's getting that happy medium, isn't it, and understanding each other.
Yeah, very much so. Right? And it all comes down to knowing more about yourself and knowing more about the other person. And so you just have to, instead of just reacting to what somebody says to you or wants to do, just stop and think for a moment and translate into, oh, what are they trying to say? What am I feeling? Right? As a result of that. So that means I can learn more about me and also learn more about them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's the whole 5 of them, really. It's not easy to live in this world, but if we use those as a tool, that helps a great deal. Right. Yeah. So you talked about quality time, and that's important, right? That may mean nothing to you. You may not. Who knows what quality time is, right? I'm just happy to be out there in a group, and I just wish that they would do something for me. On the other hand, how many women say to, or you hear them saying to their partners, you don't love me, you never tell me you love me. And he just says, for God's sake, woman, I wouldn't do all those things for you if I didn't love you. You must know that I love you.
The other way around is somebody saying to you, I love you, and repeating it, I love you, you do not understand how much I love you, and you actually don't feel it.
Yes.
Because you don't need words of affirmation, you need acts of service, or you need gifts, and because you're not receiving that, you don't feel love. So you're hearing what they say, but it doesn't resonate. And I think this will also make sense to so many teenagers not feeling loved. Now, when we come to talk about the love languages, it's a form of communication, as you've already said. So for teenagers, have a think about the relationships you're having. You're having relationships with your parents at home. You're having relationships with your girlfriends, boyfriends. You're having sexual relationships. You're having relationships with your siblings. And for you, yourself, your love language will stay the same. It won't flit and change. It will be, this is what I need, as Joe's talked about earlier. But other people will love you in very different ways. And I think Joe and I talked earlier also to say that parents at home who are busy, they might both have working lives and lots going on, trying to manage a family. It might well be that the love language at home is acts of service. They're having their washing done, they're having their cooking done, the house is organised, the events are managed, the sporting events, that you're being driven around to parties, and that you might not feel loved by your parents. There might be conflict during the teen years, but have a look at what they're actually doing for you. That is a form of their love language. And you might be getting another form of love language from a friend at school who's constantly praising you and putting you on a pedestal, and that feeds you. But we come back to the bucket, don't we? You talk about your bucket being full. How can you fill up your bucket?
Yes. How do you fill up your bucket, right? To become aware of what your needs are. That's an important one, right? But also in terms of your parents, just be aware. If you really stop and think and look at all that your mum and or your dad does for you, they may not have any more time left to anything but acts of service for you. Right? But they may go out of their way to do little things that maybe they don't have to, just that extra special, like the icing on the cake, right? Which is a way of you recognizing that maybe that is their love language. On the other hand, there's nothing wrong with maybe asking for your needs to be met too. That's the other thing, right? To have a sit down and just have a one-on-one, maybe occasionally with your mum and or your dad, if you're able to do that, and just say, I wish you hugged me more, or whatever it is, right? And that means being vulnerable, and that's not easy. But if that's what your need is, and you know that that's going to help you, then fantastic. Or try to find a way, if you can, to hug them and just see, unless they kind of step back or something, right? But, most parents love the idea that their children want to relate to them. And that's even in the midst of all this, but I need to step back because I have to be independent, right? So it's not easy to be able to negotiate this field of being a teen at home.
I was going to just go back to the receiving gifts. Like, all the others seem to all intertwine, but the receiving gifts one seems a little bit out on a limb a little bit. But I think it's important to just go over it, because I don't think the gifts are ever really materialistic that are important. I mean, maybe to some people, if that's what's deep in their core, but I think most people it's not. I think that the gift side of it is just symbols of love. So it might be, you know, your parents go out and they find you your favourite chocolate bar that you can't find everywhere, and they bring that home for you and they go, oh my goodness, look what I found. That's a gift, but it's a special gift because it's something just for you. Or you know, you've been looking for some rugby socks and they've found them on their journey as they've got them. It's a gift of love. It's the little things to show that somebody cares about you. They're the real special gifts, aren't they?
They are.
They've shown you they've thought of you, haven't they, when
exactly.
they go and buy the rugby shop.
I mean, it's symbols of love, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because also, think about mums out there. It's very stereotypical, sorry, but it is mums a lot of the time. You know, they go, what do you want for your birthday? Mums go, oh, no, nothing. I don't need anything. And it is often how we feel. But how often do you see a mum open a card which has got a few beautiful words in, and they cry and cry and cry? And that means more to them than a big, lavish gift, you know, than a bottle of champagne or whatever, or some diamonds. It's because it's a gift received with love. It's a symbol of love. The card,
it's from the heart of somebody.
Absolutely.
It's from, you know, it's so easy to fob somebody off with a present. If you're, you know, like some parents maybe feel, who've got the means, financial means, feel guilty that they may not have been spending enough time with their kids, and so they give them an expensive present. But the kids don't feel the love that's necessarily behind that.
No.
Right. And so it's a tricky one sometimes with this. Gifts mean nothing to me as such, right? Acts of service are fine. You know, I find that when you're talking about sexual or boyfriend-girlfriend type relationships or partner relationships, when we talk about love languages, somebody might say, well, of course, you know, my love language is sex. That'd be obvious, right? But that's just one component of it all. Right, and so with everything else can be wrapped up with this, in this sort of boyfriend type thing. You know, what's his love language? What's yours? It's important to learn to understand him and how he's relating to you, because you might think, oh yes, he loves me, he tells me all the time, but then he's not prepared to spend time with you, right? So or really do little things for you. So you have to maybe question that. So it's a way of being able to understand, but also get realistic about what's available.
And also to be aware of, maybe if you're in a sexual relationship, that person might not be able to fill your bucket in every way that you need, but therefore to keep healthy relationships with your girlfriends or male friends in the background, because it might be you need your girlfriends to say how amazing you are, and you can get that from somewhere else, in which case then you can turn around and say, I need not put all those expectations on my boyfriend or girlfriend, because they fill another area of my bucket, because they are spending quality time with me, and I love that as well. Or it might be that you're getting everything you need from a boyfriend but not enough time. Spend time with your girlfriends. You don't have to put all your expectations on one person, and that's what a healthy life looks like. Relationships with different friends. We go out and have a laugh with some friends. We have other friends we can sit and chat to very intimately, but we might not go out and have a laugh with them. We've got a relationship somewhere else. So what?
I mean, you can have girlfriends that you can have a cooking session with, or something like that. You know, which is fun. Or you can plant veggies or something like that in pot plants or whatever. Right? There's so many different things, because this is the one thing we have to be aware of, girls. And this will become more apparent as you go on in life and you find your life partner, and you know you have your children and everything else, right? And the important thing is not to become codependent. It's a big word, but it simply means that you expect everything of the other person. They can't give it, right? They're only a human, right? And so we have to find our love bucket being filled up in various ways. And that's important for us to understand. And it's not that we're needy, that, you know, that one person can't give it to us all, right? They can't, right? And it's okay to have needs. That's the other thing. It's all right for me to want to spend time with people, right? I mean, I love this time I have with you two when we do these interviews, right? They're fun and they're meaningful, right? And they're kind of girlfriend time to some degree, as well as making a difference. I know we're all mad, make a difference, right? And that's what we want to do in this world, is make a difference. And so, yes, it's important for us to know that that one person is not going to meet all our needs.
And also, when you understand what your love language is, you can actually use that within your self-care routine, can't you? Like if your love language is words of affirmation, then speak beautiful words over yourself. We should be doing that anyway. It really helps us in our self-care and our self-love routine. Tell yourself how amazing you are. Speak to yourself like you would your best friend. Tell you how lovely you are and that you're loved and you're lovable and you're worthy. If it's physical touch, put on some beautiful body lotion or things like that. The acts of service, do nice things for yourself. Buy yourself nice gifts. You can actually do all of them for yourself as well, can't you? And you're right, not one person will ever fill our cup up. We need a multitude of people around us because we need that variety.
We do. And in fact, it can be a fun thing for yourself to sit down and say, okay, well, I'm not quite sure which of these my love language or languages, because it can be more than one, right? I think I probably have about 3, right? But it'd be interesting to write them all down: words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, acts of service, and gifts, right? And just what lights me up, just looking at them, as it were, and then to have fun. Right? Now, the whole physical thing, I mean, who doesn't love lying in a bath with something nice to drink and maybe rose petals strewn all around or something of that nature, right? So there's lots of ways that you can give to yourself physically as well. And the words of affirmation, back to, if you heard one of our chats a couple of months ago, was about standing in front of the mirror and imagining somebody that you love in your heart, with your eyes closed, and really feeling, how much you love them and how grateful you are for them. And then imagine it when you open your eyes, if they were standing in front of you, how would you look at them? Your eyes would be alive and you'd be smiling and, the love would be beaming out of your eyes. And then when you open your eyes, you look straight ahead and you see yourself looking at you with those eyes of love. It's very powerful. Then you can speak to yourself and tell yourself, that you're okay. You understand you know, and it's a way of being able to speak to that person in the mirror as though they're a third person. And that's very powerful, girls, to do something like that, right? So that can be words of affirmation. Quality time, or even just quality time with yourself. Instead of just, chilling out in front of Netflix or something, what things can you do for you? Do you like making music? Or do you like writing poetry? Do you want to just go for a walk on a beach and put your feet on the sand or whatever it is that's quality time for you? And gifts, well, as you said, if there's something that you've been saving up for, then don't feel guilty about that. Go and do it. Right?
I ask lots of chocolate here this end.
Lots of chocolate. The other thing that I found sometimes for young women as we grow up, we love to buy, we'd rather sort of save up a little bit and get some lovely lacy underwear. Something like that can be like a special gift for ourselves, right? Make us feel kind of beautiful and sexy. And then acts of service. Now that, it's more for other people, acts of service, right? But to know what it is, if that's important to you, to be able to communicate that to other people as well. That would be something that would be meaningful for you, or do it for somebody else.
So Beverly, to summarise, we are really saying to the listeners, this is all about you. You've just talked about do something lovely for you, do it for yourself as well. This is all about you to our listeners. And I think Joe and I would agree that the moment we discovered the 5 love languages, our lives changed. We started to understand much more about ourselves, much more about healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships, because we start to look at what we're getting or not getting according to what our need is. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with anybody else because they express something we don't need. It just might be that it's not going to be a healthy relationship between the two of us. Yes. So I think the message is to our listeners, either download the book online, buy the book, or go onto the website and do the questionnaire yourself. But certainly do a bit of research for yourself into the 5 love languages. We'll just say them again: words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, physical touch, and gifts. Become aware of it because it is about communication. And we want you, in order to be fully in your true identity and happy in your life, we want you to have healthy communication in all your relationships, with your parents at home, with your sexual relationships, with your girlfriends, boyfriends, and even with your teachers at school. Everyone around you, in your sports games, whatever it is you're doing, we want you to have healthy relationships. healthy relationships are the foundation for a happy life, because we're born for connection and love. So go away and do some research. Find out what your love languages are. It might be one of the 5. It might be 5 of the 5. I think I'm 3 of the 5. And then actually you can start to work out what other people are giving or not giving you according to what you need. And you start to look at the teacher at school and think, gosh, I don't think their love language is words of affirmation, because they put people down the whole time in the classroom. But you become aware of how people are behaving, and then you start to communicate from that place. Aunty Bubbly, love having you on board.
You're very welcome, dear. It's just wonderful because you can become an observer of yourself and other people.
Absolutely.
Right? Just one step back. So you're not blaming yourself or blaming the other person. Just stop and say, what love language is happening here?
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Absolutely. And knowledge is power, and it's very empowering to know more about ourselves, isn't it? And that's what we're just offering tools to everybody, and helping them understand themselves. So on this lovely episode of TeenPODS, thank you so much for joining us, and we can't wait to see you again.
Thank you, girls. I love being here. And thank you very much, everybody, for listening and for doing something about it to change your life. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being with us today. For us to inspire others to live their magnificently imperfect life, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or on your podcast app. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Pods with Posh and Pool. We can't wait for you to join us on our next episode. Love, light and peace.